and welcome back to Good Knit Kisses. I'm your host Kristen, and my friends with allfreeknitting.com and I would like to present you with this mesh bag. And the last we saw each other, we had created the base, and now we're going to work our way up. We've still got the extra loops on here from pulling the sides over. So what I want you to go ahead and do is knit them off so that you have one section, one set of the two strands that you're using for your main bag. So go ahead and knit the 1 over 1 where they come, and then some of them are going to be 2 over 1. So you've got 2 sections on these side sections, and pull them all over. And then come back, and we are going to purl our way around. Alright, we are back, and you should have all of your sets up at the top, all these loops, so we want to take advantage of this. Don't push them down. We're going to be purling all the way around, so we're going to lift up, pull this loop off the peg, replace it, and tighten that up. Go ahead and do it again, and I've got tutorials on this slower if you need to look at those, but you're going to pull that purl up from the ocean is what I call it. Take off the old loop, put on the new, make sure and pull that. You don't have to be super tight on this project. It's supposed to be a mesh bag. So if you'll notice, I'm knitting in a counterclockwise fashion. And just a reminder, I'm not going to show you all the rows and all the pegs individually, so if you'll just keep paying attention to your screen, it'll tell you what is next, and then you can pause the video, finish your row, and come back for the next step in the pattern to make it easier. This is just to accompany the pattern that I've published. Thank you so much, and join us back in a minute. Okay, we purled our last peg here, and now we need to do an E-wrap on this next row. Go ahead and make sure everything's pushed down, and you'll notice that it's a lot easier to push down now. After you do a purl row, it's kind of loose, especially with this cotton yarn. We're going to E-wrap and knit over, and then come back for the next row. We've finished knitting over the E-wrap row. We're going to leave all of these at the top, and we're going to purl another row. Again, lifting, going through the top, pulling up, pulling the old and putting on the new. Putting the yarn on the bottom, pulling it up through the bottom, pulling off the old and putting on the new. Go all the way around and do one row in purl. And come back. I'm finishing up my last purl row, and now we're going to do it in sections, and this first section is going to be 8 rows of E-wrap and then a purl, and then we're going to have a few sections where we do E-wraps and then purls. So we'll have sets of 5 and then 1, 5 and 1, 5 and 1, but this first section's 8, so it's going to look like a longer amount, and then we'll have the purl rows, which will end up bumping out. But go ahead and E-wrap again, knit over, and do that 8 times. Pause your video, and we'll see you soon. This is the last row of the 8 E-wraps, and we're going to leave them all at the top, and now we're going to do another purl row. And what I want you to do is for the next several rows. So we're going to do a purl here, and then we're going to do 3 sections of 5 E-wraps. So you're going to purl a row, E-wrap 5 rows, purl a row, E-wrap 5 rows, purl a row, E-wrap 5 rows, and then we're going to purl another row. I'll come back after that last of the section of 5 rows. So that's 3 sections with 5 E-wraps. In between each one, make sure and purl. And be sure and be looking at the pattern that I'll attach in the description, or I'll put it in a link, and just check off your rows as you go. Put little tally marks above the instructions, whatever is easier for you, just to keep count of what you've done. And we will meet back up after that last section. So after 3 sections of E-wraps, purls in between. See you in a little while. Okay, well, great job, good going. We are almost done, and we have just done our 3rd set of 5 E-wraps with a purl in between, and now I'm going to purl one more row. This row is going to have an I-cord that we're going to make on the spool loom, and we're going to use the smaller side. There's just, I believe it's 5 pegs on that loom, and we're just going to use 3 pegs. And once we get done with that, we are going to thread it in between this row we're making here and then the next row above it. And I'm just kind of telling you about it so you'll remember later on when we talk about it. So continue on this row and meet me back up. Alright, I've just finished the very last purl row that we will do. Now we want to push these down, and we're going to do 2 more rows of E-wrap, and then we'll be casting off. Go ahead and do that and join us back up after 2 rows of E-wrap. Okay, welcome back. We are at the end here. We're going to do the basic bind off method and note where your working strand is coming from. You're going to wrap the peg that's next to it and knit off, and then take that loop and move it over to the right, and we're going in a clockwise fashion, working our way around this circle. And you're going to knit this off now, and then pick up your loop and move it over. And now you're going to do the same thing over again. So you're going to wrap the peg, knit off, move it over, knit off, pick it up, and move it over. So you're constantly moving it back over to the left next to where you're about to wrap. Just keep going in this clockwise fashion here and meet back up at the end. I do want to come back in here for a minute before I'm done and emphasize that you need to make sure and not tighten too much when you are putting your new working strands over, so that your bind off isn't too tight. We want to make sure that this opening of this bag is as big as it can be. So if you make it too tight, the opening of the bag is going to be smaller than the width of the bag, and we want it to be as large as possible. Okay, well that's that tip. Just keep going, and we'll finish up this bind off. Okay, so I finished. I wrapped my last peg again, and then I've got this loop on here. We're going to pull this off, and go ahead and pick up your crochet hook. I'm using, I forgot what this is, H. So I've got this last little loop here. I'm going to take my crochet hook and tighten that up, and we're going to look over on this side. This was where we started the bind off, and make sure you're not grabbing, we're going to grab one of these over here, but make sure you're not grabbing a row. You want to grab the top part. So follow these ridges here. So this is one, and and then this is 2, and so you want to make sure and go all the way up to this one here, and count the rows here. So you've got 1, 2, and this is 1, 2, so it looks like a chain is stopping up here, so we want to grab this chain, this part, and we're going to wrap it and pull it all the way through. I find it just easier to just pop them over. And then we're going to pull on it and cut it. And now you've closed this up. What you want to do is now go ahead and thread these all back in. If you've got it a little loose, that's okay. It's going to get masked by we're going to put an I-cord in here. So go ahead and start weaving this in and tie it off. And then the next tutorial I'm going to do is showing you how to make the I-cord. And if you already know how to make an I-cord, then go ahead and make one that is 1.5 times around this loom. Just use this loom as a measuring device. It's about 52 inches or so. So start at the starting peg, go all the way around, and then go to the other side of the starting peg, and that's how long you want to make a three stitch cord loom. So you're going to have you're going to use 3 pegs to make a small little flat panel, which makes an I-cord. What I use is the spool loom, and you use the smaller side of it. It's a 5 peg on this side, and then you've got more on this other, but just use 3 of these pegs here, and then make sure that the ends are going to be really long. That way you can tie them together. But don't tie them together until we come back. So join us on the next part for the I-cord, and if you already know how to make an I-cord, make it that length, and then join us back up for the section after that. On behalf of my friends at All Free Knitting, I'd like to thank you. Again, this is Kristen at Good Knit Kisses. Happy looming!